In a city that hides its truths in the shadows, every step forward feels like a step deeper into the dark. Detective Ethan Graves had survived one attempt on his life, but the people pulling the strings weren't finished with him yet. Victoria Langston's murder had been the opening move, and now, with every clue Graves uncovered, the danger grew. Graves' apartment, early morning. Graves answered the phone on the first ring. It was Dr. Claire Mason from the morgue, her voice tense. She had new evidence about Victoria Langston's murder. The drug found in her system had been traced back to an underground supplier. It was rare, nearly impossible to find on the streets. Whoever had used it had connections, deep ones. Graves scribbled the name down, an elusive dealer known only as Zio. He worked the edges of the city's underworld, dealing in substances most people had never heard of. If Mr. H had gone to Zhao for the drug, it meant one thing: he wasn't just another businessman. He was deeply entrenched in the city's criminal network. Graves knew what he had to do. Zhao was dangerous, unpredictable. But if he could find him, he'd be one step closer to Mr. H, and one step closer to uncovering the truth about Victoria Langston's murder. Chinatown. Afternoon. Chinatown was a maze of narrow streets and hidden alleyways, a place where secrets thrived. Graves moved through the crowd, his eyes scanning the faces of the people he passed. He was looking for someone who could lead him to Zhao. The shop was small, cluttered with trinkets and shadows. An old man sat behind the counter, his eyes sharp and knowing. Graves had been here before years ago, on a different case, but the man hadn't changed. He had connections all over Chinatown, and Graves knew he could point him in the right direction. The man didn't ask questions, he never did. But he handed Graves a slip of paper with an address scrawled on it. Zhao, the man said quietly, doesn't like visitors. Be careful. Abandoned warehouse, evening. The address led Graves to the outskirts of the city, to an old warehouse that had long been forgotten by the world. It was the kind of place where deals were made in the dark, where people disappeared without a trace. Graves wasn't surprised. This was exactly the kind of place he expected to find Zhao. The inside of the warehouse was cold, empty except for a few scattered crates and the sound of dripping water echoing from the ceiling. In the center of the room stood Zhao, a thin man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor that made Graves uneasy. He wasn't alone. Two men flanked him, their expressions cold, their hands hovering near their concealed weapons. Zhao didn't waste time. You're here for answers, he said, his voice quiet but firm. But answers come at a price. Graves had expected as much. He told Zhao about the drug used in Victoria Langston's murder, about Mr. H. Zhao listened, his expression never changing. But when Graves finished, Zhao smiled a small, knowing smile that sent a chill down Graves' spine. Mr. H, Zhao repeated, almost to himself. He is not a man you find easily. But I can tell you this, he is more dangerous than you know. He has powerful friends, and he does not forgive those who betray him. Zhao didn't give Graves a name, but he gave him something better, a lead. There's a man, Zhao said, who handles Mr. H's dirty work. His name is Kincaid. If you find Kincaid, you'll find Mr. H. But be careful, detective. Kincaid doesn't leave loose ends. As Graves stepped out into the night, he couldn't shake the feeling that Zhao had been right. He was getting closer to Mr. H, but the closer he got, the more dangerous the game became. Dark alley, night. Graves moved quickly through the rain-soaked streets, his mind racing with everything he had learned. Kincaid was the key, he knew it. But finding Kincaid wouldn't be easy. The man was a ghost, operating in the shadows, cleaning up the messes left behind by men like Mr. H. But Graves wasn't alone. He could feel it, the presence of someone following him. He turned, his hand instinctively reaching for the gun at his side, but it was too late. The hit came fast and hard, knocking the wind out of him. Graves hit the ground, gasping for breath as the rain poured down around him. A figure loomed over him, their face hidden in the darkness. "Stay away from Kincaid," the figure growled, their voice low and threatening. "Or next time, you won't get up." Graves wiped the blood from his mouth, his body aching from the attack. The warning had been clear, he was getting too close to the truth. But instead of backing off, it only fueled his determination. Whoever had sent that message didn't know Graves. He wasn't the kind of man who backed down. In the quiet of a darkened room, someone else was preparing for the next move. Fingers tapped against a keyboard, deleting files, erasing traces of conversations that had never happened. A phone rang softly in the background, and a voice answered. "Graves is still digging," the voice said. "But it won't be long now. Kincaid will take care of him.